Alrighty, so for this next section of the application, it is going to be the personal information section. And so if you have already created an account, this is where we will begin. And so you're going to go to personal information and you're going to start with the release statement. You're going to say, I completed the CASP assessment. You're going to check the box that you certify, and you're going to say that you check the box for that you acknowledge the release of contact information. You're going to save and continue, and you're going to continue to the next section. Next section is biographical information. Some of it should already be included based off what you put when you created your account. So your name should be here. It's going to say, do you have any materials under another name? For example, a maiden name or whatever the case may be. You're just going to say no. It's going to say, do you have a preferred name? If you do, you could say yes. If you don't, you could say no. It's going to ask about your legal sex. And so this is whatever is your legal sex. And so whatever it is, you're going to put. Then it's going to say, what do you consider yourself to be? Whatever it is that you can describe yourself as, you'll go ahead and select it. It's going to say, what do you describe yourself as? Same thing, whatever it is that applies to you. Then it's going to say, how do you describe the way you express your gender identity in terms of behavior? So basically, gender conforming means that you identify as and you behave as what society has labeled as female or male. So if you are gender conforming, that is what it means. If you are gender non-conforming, that just means that you do not identify as what society has labeled you to be. If you have more questions, reach out to your advisor on that. Then it's going to ask about your birth information, the date you were born, the country, the city, the state, and the county. Then it's going to ask at any time since you turned 13, were both your parents deceased? Were you in foster care? Were you dependent of ward or the court? So this is at any time, even if it was just for a day, you're going to say yes. If not, you're going to say no. It's going to say, as determined by the court in your legal residence, are you or were you an emancipated minor? It's going to say at any time on or after July 1st, did your high school or school district homeless liaison determine that you were an unaccompanied youth? You're going to say yes or no, depending on your status. At any time on or after July 4th, did the director of an emergency shelter or transitional housing program funded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development determine that you were an unaccompanied youth? Then it's going to say at any time after July 1st, did the director of a runaway or homeless youth basic center or transitional living program determine that you were an unaccompanied youth? Again, depending on your status, you'll answer those appropriately and say, I reviewed this information, and continue to the next section. The next section is your contact information. So it's going to ask about your address. Go ahead and put the address that you live in. Even if it doesn't match what the school has on file, you want to make sure that it's the house you live in. You only need to answer questions that have a star next to it. You do not need to answer the ones that do not, unless you would like to. It's going to ask, is this your permanent residence? You're going to say yes or no. Typically it's yes. The phone number is going to be whatever you created your account with. Same thing with the email address, whatever you created your account with. Then you're going to save and continue to the next section. And the next section is citizenship and residency information. So it's going to ask, what is the, select the value that best describes your citizenship status. So if you are an undocumented student, you are going to put none. If you are a permanent resident, have a green card, you'll select that. If you're a U.S. citizen, you'll select U.S. citizen. We're going to start with the students that are undocumented first. So you're going to put none. Then it's going to say country of citizenship. Whatever the case may be, you will select that, whatever is appropriate to you. Again, you do not have to answer this question if you do not want to. The next section is going to ask, do you claim California residency? Everybody should put yes, because you live in California. And it's just that you claim that you live in California and that you reside in California. Have you lived in California continuously since birth? If it's no, you'll put no. That is going to say, when did you begin your current stay? This is just because they want to know what year you came into the state. So if it was when you were younger, you'll just put the year. They just want to make sure that you've been here for 3 or more years for AB 540 purposes. And so that's how you will fill out this section. But if you're a California resident, if you've lived here since birth, you'll just say yes. You won't have to do this section. If you have questions on your residency status, feel free to reach out to your advisor. Then you're going to say, I've reviewed this information, and you're going to continue to the next section. If you are a resident or you have citizenship, you would just say yes, yes to the last two. The next section is the race and ethnicity section. So with regard to your ethnicity, do you consider yourself a Hispanic or Latino? If it's yes, you'll put yes. If it's no, you'll put no. And if you say yes, they just ask you to specify which one. Then it's going to say for your race, regardless of your answer to the question above, please select one or more of the following if any of these apply to you. If none, you'll just say none of the above. And then it's going to say California State University often needs to report only one summary race ethnicity description per person. Please select your reporting preference. Whichever one you identify as is the one you'll select. And you'll say save and continue to the next section. Now we get to the parent or guardian information section. You are required to include at least one parent or guardian in your application. It is required. So you're going to go ahead and say add a parent or guardian, and then you're going to put their name. You're going to put their last name, their relationship to you. Is your parent or guardian a current permanent resident of California? You're going to say yes if they live here. They're going to say, have they lived here since birth? You'll say no or yes, depending. If they have not, it's going to say, when did the current stay begin? You're just going to guesstimate whenever you think it was. If you know the year, at least know the year. But if you don't know anything else, you could just guess. It's going to say the prior country, wherever that was, the state, and then from when to when did they live there. So whenever they were born to whenever they left. Then you're going to say your mailing address. It's going to ask about their mailing address. So whatever their address is, you're going to put that. Then it's going to ask for an email address, but this part is not required. And then it's going to say, do you give permission for the admissions office to communicate with your parents? You could say yes, or you could say no. It's your choice. And then it's going to say, do you give permission for the parent or guardian to receive university campus communications? Again, this is up to you, yes or no. Then you're going to save and continue. And then it added it. You could add another parent, or you can continue to the next section. So the next section is the other information section. So it's going to say your designated program may require Social Security for institutional federal financial aid forms. It's just going to ask you, do you have one? If you have one, you'll say yes, and you'll input it. If you don't, you'll just say no. And then it's going to say you acknowledge that you do not have a Social Security. If you have one, please make sure you put it. It's just easier if you do it in the beginning. Then it's going to ask about your California State Student Identifier. This is on your transcript. So if you download your transcript, it's not your student ID, but the logger number. Then it's going to ask, what is your first language? Whatever it is, you could put English or whatever the case is, and then you could add another language. The military status is already inputted for you. It's going to ask if you're a military dependent. So it's going to say, are you the dependent of a person who's currently serving? If yes, you'll put it. If no, you'll put no, or if they're a veteran, whatever your status is. It's going to say, are you in good academic standing with your school? Typically, it's yes. It's going to say, have you ever been disciplined for academic performance by any college or university? You're going to say no, because you have not been in college. It's going to say, have you been academically disqualified from any college? You're going to say no. Have you ever been disciplined for student conduct violations at a college? You're going to say no. Then it's going to ask about teacher credentialing. It's just, if you are interested in going into the credential program to be a teacher, you can say you're planning to apply to it later or for this term. Typically, it's for a later time. Then it's going to ask about CalFresh. It's going to say, are you interested in CalFresh? I would just say yes. It's just helps you to receive food stamps if you need them. I would highly suggest it. College student, sometimes finances are tough. You qualify for it, so I would just say yes. Then it's going to ask about the California Promise. Everybody should say yes to this section. It's just saying, if you fall under one of the majors that fall under the California Promise, they will help you and guide you to make sure you graduate in 4 years. And you're just saying that, yes, you're interested in participating in this and that you will like to receive the help to graduate within 4 years. Then it's just going to say, how did you hear about the Cal State Apply? You could just put counselor/advisor. Then you can select, I reviewed this information, and continue to the next section. Now, this is a very important section, the financial and parental information section. This is what will determine if you're eligible for financial aid. So it's going to give you some information to read about to see if any of these apply to you. So were you born before this date? No. Are you currently an active duty veteran? No. You have or will have children or dependents? Again, this is dependent on you. Someone other than your parent or step parent have legal guardianship of you. So this is someone other than a biological parent or your step parent. And legal guardianship, meaning through the court. So if a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, anyone other than your parent or step parent. if it's someone that's a guardian. At any time since you were 13, both your parents were deceased, you were in foster care, etc., if that applies to you. At any time on or after July 1st, did your high school or emergency shelter, transition housing program, or homeless youth determine that you are an unaccompanied youth? And then you currently do not live with your parents / step-parent, have no contact. So if that's you, you'll say one or more of the above apply to you, and you'll be considered an independent student. It's going to ask about your household size. So you're an independent, so you yourself. It's just one, and then it's going to say number of, if you have children, and then it's going to say how much you make. If you're an independent youth, it would be 1. If you have children, you'll put it adjusted gross income. If you work, if you don't, you'll put 0. 0. Are you interested in campus housing? You're going to say yes. Then it's going to ask about parent education. If none of the above apply to you, you're going to put none of the above apply to me. Then it's going to ask about parent household size. So it's going to say the total size of parents, step-parents, and household, to be sure to include yourself, the parent, any other household members. So this is going to include you, your parent or guardian or step-parent. So if you live with mom, dad, mom, step-parent, etc., and anybody else that lives in the household. So biological children of your parent or guardian, including aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, grandparents, friends, whoever lives under the household is going to be included in household size. Then it's going to ask about your parents' adjusted gross income for 2019. This can be found on their 2019 W-2 forms or their tax documents. You'll put that number here, and then any untaxed income. Untaxed income includes like retirement, Social Security, disability, etc. Then it's going to say, again, are you on campus housing? You're going to say yes, and it's going to ask about your parents' household. Based on the information you put here, it'll determine if you're qualified for financial aid at the end of the application. You're going to say, I've reviewed this information, and it's going to say, continue to the next section. So that was a section for the personal information. We are going to be moving on to the high school's attended section now.